Hello and welcome to Girl About Town. I am yet again Amila Skepe, and joining me today is the beautiful Yonela Ndila, who is a commercial and maritime law expert. Yonela, thank you so much for joining us on Girl About Town. How are you doing, madam?
Hi, Amila. I'm good, thank you. It's raining, but I'm great.
We're good, even if the weather's not allowing.
Yes.
Hey. So take us back a little bit. Tell us about your background and what inspired you to pursue a law career, especially in maritime and commercial law.
Okay, so I'm from Cape Town, born and bred.
Yes.
Cape Town is basically home, and it has been for the longest time until recently when I moved to PE. So that's where I did my schooling and so forth. So I studied BCom law and then progressed to a postgraduate LLB at the University of the Western Cape. I worked for a few years, and I think during that time, worked for 4 years in a company in Cape Town where we were just doing, it was a debt review company. We were just a legal consultant, just handling the day-to-day legal work, sending applications to court, etc., etc. And I think at that point in time, I don't think it was apparent that I would go into law, to be honest. I always say I didn't choose law, it chose me. For the longest time, I loved numbers. I was a maths girl. I still do. And I really thought I would go into something that has to do with maths. But it just so happened that, I loved maths, but I didn't go into maths. Essentially, I thought I would be a web administrator or webmaster, which was weird, but it didn't feel like the most secure option. Because at the time, with the background I have, the family I come from, you want a career that's sort of secure. You want to know that you can get work, you can sort of earn a lot of money, something that we thought existed in law, a story for another day. But I think that's basically how. So when I had to go into university, I was still skeptical, law or not law. And I decided, let me do a BCom law. There, I can just sort of suss out and test the waters.
Yeah.
And then once I completed my BCom law, it just made sense to continue with an LLB. And that's just how I found myself in law.
And how do you see your work in ocean governance contributing to the sustainability of our oceans as well as the communities that depend on them?
So I think first I would want to unpack what ocean governance is.
Awesome.
Right? Because it involves framework and regulations around that oversee essentially ocean activities or activities that are happening within our oceans, be it navigation, be it fishing, whatever you can think of. So that's what ocean governance is in a nutshell. But my focus is mainly on maritime cybersecurity. And the reason I went into the space is, as much as ocean governance is broad and it's interdisciplinary, where you have lawyers, you have marine biologists, you have environmental scientists, but I was more interested in, we are in the wake of artificial intelligence, where we're seeing all of these technologies, technological assets, as I call them, and infrastructures. But my question was, what happens when some of these digital infrastructures within our ports are hacked into? Do we have a framework in place that regulates that? And using those questions, I then decided to venture into that specific area because I thought it's important.
Yeah.
When we're talking about cyber crimes, I mean, that's a conversation that happens in whichever space you are in. But if we're talking about it in a context of our oceans, I mean, South Africa comprises of we have more oceans than we have of the land area, if we can speak about that. So, I mean, there's a lot of activities that are happening within that space. It's a busy route for vessels that are coming from all over the continent. So it just made sense. I want to just do a bit of research into that space. And I think it's critical, especially so because should some of these vessels, for instance, be cyber attacked, and it has an impact because it can result in oil pollution. Oil pollution then obviously affects the environment. It obviously then affects not only the resources that are found in that space, but even humans that make use of the resources that are found in that space. So that's just how I got into that space essentially.
That's interesting. And how do you see South Africa playing a role in the global maritime industry? And how do you think that we can further strengthen our position?
I think first and foremost, South Africa, we are very fortunate in South Africa because we are situated in a very geographically, we're
Yeah.
situated in the best place
Mm.
because that's where we have our Atlantic Ocean. And also that route is very busy, and we were very fortunate, I guess. Someone must have loved South Africa to be able to place us there, but that's where we are. And that then means that because our ocean activities, there's so much happening within there. It also then means that we are at the forefront in Africa when it comes to policies and regulating our oceans and the activities therein. So that means whatever we choose to do in South Africa, whatever policies we implement, there's other African countries that are looking to us and seeing how they can obviously also maybe implement similar policies. Some of the policies we have are obviously reinforced by the International Maritime Organization, which is obviously some of those instruments are implemented in South Africa by SAMSA, who is the custodian that implements all of these policies, etc. So we are very fortunate, in that, so that we are at the forefront. But I do believe there are other opportunities that exist for South Africa that we haven't necessarily tapped into. Some of the potential opportunities that we can use our oceans for. For example, a while back I spoke about ocean energy and how we're not at a point where we're utilizing our oceans to generate electricity, which is something that is possible.
Ooh.
So yeah, so it's those type of things that I think as South Africa we can really look into and tap into.
How do you bridge the gap between traditional maritime law as well as the emerging technological concerns through your work?
I think the biggest and foremost thing is to understand the fact that there's traditional frameworks and they are important and we can't do away with them. For example, if I talk about the Law of the Sea Convention, I mean, it was put in place in around 1982. Like that was a long time ago. And at the time, we didn't have all of these digital infrastructures we're talking about. We didn't have all of these technological assets. So we couldn't have expected that convention to deal with issues relating to cybercrime. So what I do in trying to bridge the gap is looking at the existing frameworks and try and read in some of the realities that are happening now that weren't thought of at that time because that wasn't the reality then, and then see, are these frameworks still applicable to these issues? And to some extent, depending on the interpretation, they could be, but sometimes there are certain gaps, and that's why then we need policymakers to then fill in those gaps. And that's what I'm trying to do, to try and stand and say, look, I'm advocating for this. These are the threats currently, so we need policies that will address these relevant threats that we have.
And now let's tap into the joys of the job, right? What has been the most rewarding part of your career so far?
I think the most rewarding part of my career is the fact that, first of all, I decided to leave traditional law practice. Thank God I did that. I did not find pleasure in going to court, in filing court documents. It's really not the happy or the nice part about law that I think lawyers don't talk about. Having to wait on the master's office, and people know they've been waiting for a year at least, waiting for feedback from the master's office. So that I didn't enjoy, the running around. I like the fact that now I get to do the work that I love. I get to do the work that I enjoy. I decide what I want to take on and what I don't want. And that's what makes this journey so worth it.
Yeah. And can we tap into one of the biggest challenges that you face in the journey, considering that you mentioned one of them now?
I think one of the challenges, I think for me, was having to balance. I'm a mom, I'm an attorney at the same time, and studying. So having to navigate all of that and having to balance it was extremely difficult. But I did it because I needed to constantly remind myself why I was doing it, right? And also, I wanted to be a present mom because I'm also a single mom raising a daughter who doesn't have a dad that's alive. So it required me to be fully present. So I just needed to juggle and be able to avail myself while still trying to upskill and equip myself. So that was quite challenging. There were times where I felt I'm exhausted, I'm tired, but I needed to push through. But I'm grateful I did, because now when I look back, I'm like, it was so worth it. It
Oh
really
my
was
goodness.
worth it.
Yeah, nice. The cherry on top of it all.
Yes.
And lastly, before I do let you go, what advice would you give to the young ladies out there who look up to you and see you in magazine covers and be like, oh my goodness, I want to be like Yonela Ndila when I grow up?
I think the first part would be you need to believe in yourself. I know it sounds cliche, but believe you are capable, believe you are worthy, believe you have a contribution, you can make a contribution. Often people are so scared of giving an input or sharing their ideas or their opinions because they think it's not important. It actually is important. And don't stop equipping yourself. Don't stop learning. If it means taking a new course, do it. If it means learning a new skill, do it. Till this day, I'm still learning. I'm still taking on new skills because it never stops. Continuing to learn never stops. And I think more than anything, don't stop knocking on those doors. Some of those doors won't open. That is fine. Don't panic. Then build your own door. That's what I did, and it's worked out for me.
Queen style. Build your own door. And that was Yonela Ndila on Girl About Town. Yonela, thank you so much for coming. You were a grace to be around. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. Lovely being here.
Awesome.